Personal Story segment tonight, as we've been reporting, there would not be a refugee crisis in the Middle East and Europe if President Obama and the West had dealt with Iraq and Syria in a responsible way. Now, yesterday on Fox News, Dennis Kucinich, very liberal guy, said this.
Let's face something here. Donald Trump didn't create these wars. Wars create refugees, and President Obama, both in Syria and in Lebanon, has backed conflicts which have created refugees. So that's something that if he's involved in a debate, he should have to answer that.
Mr. Kucinich joins us now from Cleveland. So we both agree that President Obama is partially responsible for the refugee chaos, but you're coming at it from a different point of view than I am. So just explain your point of view for us.
Well, I'm opposed to U.S. interventionism. It cost our nation dearly, $6 trillion since 9/11. We have a right to defend ourselves, but look, Iraq, that was President Bush's watch, created an enormous amount of refugees. Libya and Syria created a lot of refugees. That was President Obama's watch. If you don't have wars, you don't create refugees. So, there has to be some responsibility has to be taken by the president.
See, I see a little bit differently, because in Syria, which is ground zero for the refugee problem, and that's the country that President Trump has said, we're not going to take any refugees until we can figure out a better vetting system. There, we didn't really do anything. We didn't intervene. We let Assad, the butcher, kill his people, which created a refugee situation all its own. We had nothing to do with that. Am I wrong?
Bill, I hate to say this, but you're wrong, because the U.S. has been involved in covert action and working with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar in financing jihadists who've come from maybe 100 different countries into Syria to try to knock off the Syrian government and establish a caliphate.
All right, so you're saying that covert action against Assad, but that's a small part of it. Assad would have murdered these people anyway. Because they don't like him. No, they would. Oh, come on. They don't like him.
I'm not defending Assad. You've got to look at Syria as a pluralist society. The Assad regime has opponents. I've talked to the opponents. They don't want people coming in from outside Syria to try to upend their country. No more than we in America want China coming in.
Maybe true, but there still would be refugees because of the civil war in that country. Now, when you say you don't want Americans abroad, you have more in common with Trump than you do Obama, because Trump, he doesn't want to go into these countries. He's made that quite clear.
Right, go ahead.
In the suspension of the travel to the United States, what the president is clearly saying, if anybody wants to pay attention, is that these states mentioned, Syria, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, on and on, they don't have any central authority, so anybody can get on a plane and be in Kennedy Airport in 10 hours. And we have to figure out how to vet this, because their governments are all collapsed. That's not an unreasonable position, is it?
Well, you know what? I carry this pocket Constitution, and the First Amendment says no religious test. That holds our society together.
It's not a religious test. It's a national test on these countries. Not religion.
It's a ban on Muslims.
If you're Jewish or Christian in those countries, you can't come here either.
Well, this is we got to call it what it is. It's a ban on Muslims. America's never had a religious test.
It's not a ban on Muslims. If you're a Libyan Christian, you can't come here. You know that's true.
Well, there's been some interpretation that said Christians can come in.
No, there isn't.
We shouldn't have a religious test, and that's, Bill.
But we don't have a religious test.
This is my Bible. I go by the Constitution. No religious test, and that's a religious test.
Where, I like you. This is where you go off the rails. This is where you go off the rails. I present the facts that people in those countries, no matter what religion they are, cannot come here temporarily, and then you pull out your Constitution and totally distort what the order is.
No.
That's going off the rails.
Bill, that is like a compliment for you to tell me that I'm distorting things. I just want to say, Bill O'Reilly, no religious test, period. Now, as far as who created these wars, Donald Trump didn't create the wars. That's pretty obvious.
Okay. All right, Dennis, thanks very much. Plenty more ahead as a